Welcome to Excellent TV. We break and analyze news for excellence.
If this is your first time visiting this channel, please don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to turn on the post notification bell to get notified every time we upload new videos. Thank you.
The United States has time and time again neglected its obligation under Chapter 73 of the Charter of the United Nations to grant the people of Guam full self-governance. And while the people of Guam have been successful in educating the public about the issues with our current political status, the 2017 Davis ruling and the 2020 Supreme Court's decision to uphold it has significantly hindered the long-standing efforts by the people of Guam to hold a political status referendum. As a consequence of the court's decision to uphold the ruling, the people of Guam have now exhausted all available domestic remedies to obtain self-governance. However, I am confident that through the cooperation with organizations like the Unpo, the people of Guam can increase the intensity, the frequency, and consistency in our engagement with the United Nations. It is sad to say, but even though we are strategic, well-informed, and articulate when we address the UN, we can only participate twice a year. And the United States often opposes our assertions when we leave New York. Yes, this is a troubling reality because when we do not speak for ourselves, the federal government speaks for us. And misrepresentation can be just as damaging as no representation. It is my hope that by working with the UNPO, Guam can obtain an international remedy to the long-standing injustice of colonization. I am happy to report that through discussions with the UNPO General Secretary, we have identified two possible legal options. One is to take our case before the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, and the second being the International Court of Justice. However, either option is no small task and will require your support. The Chamorro people are resilient, and anyone who knows me knows that I will adapt, improvise, and overcome. For the reasons I have just outlined, I want to say thank you to General Secretary Ralph Bunche, to Mr. Fernando Burgess, and every one of you here today for allowing the people of Guam to be a part of the UNPO. Our people have overcome typhoons, wars, and many other obstacles before. I turn to you to stand in solidarity and as we work to achieve our political destiny. Guam is the tip of the spear for the United States Armed Forces, yet we are a small island in the Pacific with a rich history. The history and plight of our people must be shared, and I hope you all can help me preserve what is left of our culture and our heritage. On behalf of a grateful community, our island of Guam, Kondonkla na si Diyos Maasi, thank you and God bless for giving me this opportunity to be here with you and joining you. Tayo Maasi.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Nasa, I thought to just what we might do is that I would sort of push on with this, and then we'll have you do a closing speech if that's okay.
No problem. Just continue as you intended now.
Okay, very good. So thank you, Madam Speaker, for that really wonderful speech, and we, just to say again, we are just delighted to have you join us and to be working with you. I'm also really delighted actually to be introducing Professor Banji Akintoye. I'm going to unmute him just to make sure that he is actually here. What is so special about the Yoruba World Congress that we're welcoming in today is that in many ways it's a new initiative. There's been a movement for the self-determination of the Yoruba people for many, many years. But just recently, this World Congress met and formed around the leadership of Professor Akintoye. And it seeks to represent all of the people of Yoruba with a very diverse membership within the Yoruba people. And for us, it's just wonderful to see a movement being developed like the World Yoruba Congress under the leadership of Professor Akintoye, who is really a very well regarded and highly known person within his community. And so I'm just delighted to have you join us and to join the UNPO. So the floor is over to you, sir.
I want to start by thanking UNPO for giving me the opportunity to speak up for the Yoruba Nation. Today, we, the Yoruba Nation, we also call ourselves the Oduduwa Nation. When in 1914 the British amalgamated the Yoruba indigenous nation with other nations to form the country called Nigeria, the Yoruba Nation was the largest single nationality in the new country and already had more than 1,000 years of formal civilization building in Black Africa. The Yoruba had started to live in towns and cities by the 9th century AD. By the time that the first European explorers came to the coast of West Africa in the 15th century, Yoruba land was already a copiously urbanized country. Indeed, one of the most urbanized countries in the world, with heavily populated cities and towns at short distances from one another. In the context of this urban civilization, we Yoruba evolved advanced economic, cultural, political, and religious systems. Earliest Europeans explorers and traders along the West African coast from the late 15th century found the influence of Yoruba civilization and Yoruba diaspora trading colonies among many West African peoples, and the Yoruba language as a language of commerce among many different peoples. With the coming of Christian evangelism and Western education in the mid-19th century, Yoruba urban civilization immediately enabled Yoruba land to benefit more than other parts of Black Africa. By the 1860s, we Yoruba were already producing a class of university graduates and educated professionals. The first newspaper in Black Africa was published in the Yoruba city of Abeokuta in 1859, and other newspapers were soon published in other Yoruba cities. For much of the rest of Black Africa, schools did not come until after 1900, by which time some Yoruba families were already producing their third generation of university graduates. At the amalgamation in 1914, the Yoruba were the only educated nation in the new country of Nigeria. From 1952 to 1962, under a limited self-government arrangement and federal constitution, which the British granted to Nigeria, the Yoruba nation proceeded to make the mostly Yoruba western region of Nigeria the pace setter in Nigeria and even in Africa in virtually all aspects of development and modernization. But the Nigerian environment has consistently been hazardous to the Yoruba nation. From the beginning, the British colonial rulers feared the considerably educated and culturally sophisticated Yoruba and proceeded to do everything to limit their influence in Nigeria. From the British, the tradition passed on to the non-Yoruba peoples of Nigeria that the Yoruba needed to be stopped and, quote, to stop the Yorubas, unquote, became the constant purpose of Nigeria. At Nigeria's independence in 1960, the British manipulated everything to impose the Hausa Fulani of northern Nigeria as a dominant group over the Nigerian federal government and to exclude the Yoruba leadership from the federal government. The British regarded the mostly uneducated Hausa Fulani, particularly the Fulani, as, quote, the friendly people, unquote, under whom British influence will continue to be strong in independent Nigeria. In 1962, less than 2 years into Nigeria's independence, the anti-Yoruba hostility finally produced a covert operation by the federal government of Nigeria, assisted by the British from the sidelines, to destabilize the predominantly Yoruba Western region. The covert operation succeeded in splitting the reputedly disciplined Yoruba political leadership of the Western region, and the federal government immediately rushed in, declared that law and order had broken down in the Western region, suspended the region's elected government, imposed a hand-picked sole administrator on the region, and imprisoned the topmost Yoruba leader. Finally, the federal government chose a faction of the disgraced Yoruba leadership as federal allies and proceeded to give them the legitimacy by blatantly rigging the regional election of 1965 for them in their favor. At that point, Yoruba youths of the Western region revolted, and they kept on stubbornly fighting the authorities until law and order totally collapsed in the Western region, and until the whole of Nigeria became profoundly destabilized. In January 1966, the Nigerian military, very displeased with the way the Western region was being handled, overthrew the governments of the Federation. For 3 decades after that, until 1999, Nigeria reeled in a dark and darkening cloud under military dictatorships. All the military coups, all the military dictatorships from 1966, July, until 1999, were led by military officers from northern Nigeria. This was so because the northern political elite, whom the British had manipulated into dominance over Nigeria at independence, had used their control of federal power to ensure a dominant number of northern officers in the military ranks. Under the successive military dictatorships, Nigeria descended deeper and deeper into crookedness, insensitive governance, rampant corruption, impunity, government effort to impose a religion, religious and inter-ethnic violence, insecurity, grossly poor and incompetent management of the economy, and hopeless poverty. The military dictatorships destroyed the essence of federalism, grabbed all power and all resource control into the hands of the federal government, turned the state governments of the Federation into helpless dependents on federal handouts, and thus destroyed the spirit of development and enterprise in all parts of Nigeria. Today, Nigeria is known as the #1 home of extreme poverty in the world. And there are predictions that in a few years, as much as 50% of all the most desperately poor people in the world will be Nigerians. Since the controllers of federal authority were consistently northern Muslims, the ambition grew among them to impose Islam upon Nigeria, a country with large numbers of Muslim, Christian, and traditional worshippers. They thereby led Nigeria into frequent Islamic fundamentalist explosions. The massive revenues being earned in these years by Nigeria from the petroleum exports turned out to be a curse rather than a blessing. Inevitably, the Yoruba nation was sucked into this deepening disaster. The military dictatorship seized important Yoruba assets that had been created in 1959-52 era in the Western region. Most of such assets were then poorly managed or deliberately allowed to decline or even perish. Deepening poverty became the lot of the Yoruba nation in Nigeria. Also, Yoruba political leadership increasingly fell for most of the insensitive governance and public corruption characteristic of Nigeria. In these circumstances, the Yoruba people have progressively lost the enterprising spirit and the spirit of service to society for which their nation has been known throughout its long history. The quality of Yoruba education has been destroyed. Yoruba language has declined and now faces the threat of extinction. To destroy Yoruba knowledge of and pride in their history, Nigeria's federal military government prohibited the teaching of history in schools. Yoruba rulers have neglected agriculture until farming came to have among them the image of an occupation fit only for the aged, the poor, and the illiterate, and until Yoruba land came to depend mostly on food importations. By 1962, cocoa export by Yoruba farmers were the source of funding for the Western region's ambitious development programs and the main foreign exchange source for Nigeria. By the early 1980s, Yoruba cocoa exports had dwindled almost to zero. With the economy depressed, unemployment has escalated relentlessly among educated Yoruba youths, forcing many to go into crimes, into drug abuse, and into criminal courts, and forcing many more to flee to other countries in the world. Yoruba youths are regularly many among West African youths who in desperation attempt to reach Southern Europe through the Sahara Desert and the Mediterranean Sea, and who frequently die in droves in the desert and in the sea. The Yoruba people are experiencing a degree of poverty, of loss of morale, of hopelessness, and of disorientation unknown in their history. In spite of their very strong cultural unity, and in spite of their unity around many other exalted principles, the Yoruba almost constantly look disunited and conflict-prone in Nigeria. Largest in population in Nigeria and in Africa, the most educated people in Nigeria and in Africa. And a nation with a very large diaspora in most countries of the world. The Yoruba do often appear like a small and impotent group in Nigeria. The Nigerian experience now confronts the Yoruba with the probability of a devastating revolt among the huge masses of their educated but unemployed and neglected youths. Ultimately, the worst degradation suffered by the Yoruba nation in Nigeria is that since 2015, heavily armed Fulani herdsmen and militias from northwestern Nigeria have been coming to Yoruba land, rampaging, destroying farms and villages, killing rural folks, threatening to conquer the Yoruba nation, to seize land all over Yoruba land, even to banish the Yoruba nation from their homeland, and to bring Fulani folks from other countries of West Africa to seize and possess land in Yoruba land. Many Yoruba people have been forced to abandon farming altogether, and the rampages are putting unbelievable pressure on the already weakened Yoruba economy in general. Even the large Yoruba cities have come under these threats also, as millions of uneducated and unskilled youths have been deliberately encouraged and assisted by some in the northern elite to migrate to the Yoruba southwest, where they are building up into a devastating burden on Yoruba society and economy. Countless Yoruba patriots and civil organizations and the patriots and organizations of most other Nigerian peoples have bravely agitated for decades for a return to a truly federal system. But the people who control the central government have stubbornly employed the central government's power to prevent such restructuring. The horrific conditions of Nigeria are intensifying abominably. Human blood is flowing increasingly across the face of Nigeria. United Nations and other international agencies and countless informed Nigerians are loudly predicting Nigeria's imminent descent into famine and starvation, insupportable weight of foreign debt, total economic collapse, and even an apocalyptic implosion, which could spew ruin and human suffering over most of West Africa. Most of Yoruba people have now given up on the agitation for restructuring and have moved to the position that the Nigerian situation should be sorted out by peaceful and friendly negotiations, which will enable the Yoruba nation, as well as other nations that so choose, to retrieve their self-determination and to pursue in their own way their political, economic, and cultural stabilization, progress, and prosperity. The Yoruba World Congress, which I have the honor to lead, and which consists of thousands of Yoruba men and women at home in Nigeria and in the Yoruba diaspora in most countries of the world, has stepped boldly forward to motivate the Yoruba people to defend their homeland and to prepare themselves for the accomplishment of their nation's ultimate goal of self-determination and prosperity. We, Yoruba World Congress, are an umbrella organization of hundreds of Yoruba civic organizations at home in Nigeria and in most countries of the world. We are working to empower our Yoruba youths to turn to productive enterprises and to begin to transform their lives. We are working with competent scholars of language to revive the Yoruba language. We are engaging in occasional schools aimed at regenerating Yoruba civility and common spirit and community spirit. Some of our related organizations are beginning to plan a Yoruba referendum. Though our Yoruba Congress is less, Yoruba World Congress is less than 1 year old, and even though we are known to be faithfully committed to peaceful activities and peaceful purposes, the Nigerian government has already begun to take action against us. This past week, the Nigerian Director of State Security announced that all organizations like ours have been removed from the list of state-registered organizations, and that the security forces will soon are preparing to clamp down on the members of such organizations. So it is a great thing that at this point, when the Yoruba struggle for liberation and self-determination is reaching these heights and looking forward with hope, it's a great thing that we have the opportunity to be working with the UNPO. We are committed to peaceful means only, and we will not. It is part of our constitution that we will not let any situation or condition whatsoever push us into violent action. That's our decision. And we believe, the important thing is that we believe that peaceful means can achieve the purpose for which we stand. And that in the company of other nations in the UNPO, we will be able to achieve our purposes peacefully. I thank you all. I thank you on behalf of the Yoruba Nation. And I thank you on behalf of the Yoruba World Congress. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. I think it was very good. And then Ralph, who's the next speaker?
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, NASA. So we now have two speakers lined up, and we're sort of running out of time. I'm gonna start with because I think Ikenna is still trying to sort himself out there. I'm gonna start with Ben Siembango from the river races, the movement for the survival of the river races of Zambezia. Ben, are you on? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oh, hi. It is wonderful to have you. Just to do a quick introduction, the river races of the Zambezia, as I sort of said at the beginning, are people who are living south of the Zambezi River in southern Africa. Ben is joining us from Namibia, but they are like many of our members in that they have people located across international boundaries and are a very diverse group of people with good kinship ties to other members from our organization, such as the Barotse people. We're really delighted to have them joining the UNPO. So over to you, Ben. I'm very sorry we are running short on time, so if I can keep you to like 10 minutes, it would be really good.
Thank you. I wish to greet the presidents, the leadership of UNIPO, and all the members of UNIPO throughout the world. I want to thank UNIPO for allowing me to speak on behalf of the indigenous people now living between north of the Kalahari Desert and the south of the Zambezi. We are a diverse community who, by history, we have been moved by many, many people. The first one being the Barotse kings, followed by the Kololets from the south, who were named the Makololo Kingdom. Around the 1830s. Later, these were again, the Barotse defeated the Makololo and they re-established their glory again in 1864. From 1864 up to 1885, we were under the Makololo, the Barotse Kingdom, until Great Britain had declared what we call a sphere of influence over a country north of the former north of the Channel Protectorate and south of the Zambezi River. This country was the country that played host to the famous missionary and explorer, Dr. David Livingstone, in his case in trying to stop the slave trade in South and Central Africa. This country played a major role in that the kings of Zambezia, the former king of Zambezia, the Kololo, in fact, let's say he came from Lesotho, but because of the war in the south, he was forced to cross the Kalahari Desert and the land in a place now called Caprivi Street. And after that, he invited Dr. David Livingstone to come and pay him a visit because he knew Dr. David Livingstone's friendship with a man called the late Moffat, Reverend Moffat, who was good friend with the king of the Matebele called Unwazurike and his son. So he wanted to have peace with Unwazurike because Unwazurike was actually part of the Zulu that had moved from Zululand because of Shaka War to now called Zimbabwe. And this man was actually in charge of that part of the country. So we have been under the rule of the Lords, under the rule of the English, under the rule of the first, the Lords, second, the Makololos, third, the English. In fact, the English even named their El Dorado. You can see from that picture that I'm holding. It says Zambezia, England, El Dorado, Africa. In other words, it was their specialty as far as the territories were concerned in Southern Africa. However, we have been very fortunate that we are the only country maybe in Africa. Ethiopia or Abyssinia was colonized Britain by the Italians. We cannot talk about Liberia because that was the land that the Americans had set for people who wanted to come back to Africa. But we have got on record that we've never been colonized by any African, any European power, because the British had placed on us a sphere of influence. A sphere of influence is nothing but a policy of the colonizers from what it was. Although later it was misunderstood by people to think that the other protectorates, being former German protectorate of Southwest Africa, which is supposed to be Namibia, and the former British protectorate of Botswana, which is supposed to be Botswana. Those countries' boundaries were actually agreed upon at the Berlin Conference of 1884-1885. German protectorate was under the tutelage of Imperial Germany, while the Botswana protectorate was under the British. We too were brought in as part of the British Empire, but we were not a colony, neither were we a protectorate. We were a sphere of influence. Now, after some length of period that has passed, we had this First World War. The First World War, it never changed our status. We know that the mandate came in Southwest Africa, but now Zambezia is fragmented in between three countries. One, the former Botswana protectorate. Two, German protectorate of Southwest Africa. Three, former North Rhodesia. So we are in between those countries. But we know for sure that our country has never been colonized by any European power. Although now we find ourselves in a situation where our country is fragmented between these three countries who are occupying part of our border. Our borderland. What is of great concern to us is that following the new independent states of Botswana, Namibia, and Zambia, new post-colonial boundaries have been established within the territory of Zambezia in order to justify that the country was colonized by the former colonizers. It's our genuine expectation that once the British sphere of influence had been terminated or withdrawn, the country was supposed to be handed over to the indigenous people who are the river basin. The country has remained relatively underdeveloped under these circumstances to an extent that we do not have parliament, we do not have a Supreme Court, we do not have a High Court, we do not have even a single railway track that's moving within that country. We do not have even higher institutions of learning because right now we are fragmented within these three countries, despite the fact that we have got two British orders council that were issued in our favor. The first one being the Lewanika British Order in Council of the 27th of June 1890. The second one being the British Order in Council of 30th June 1890. But emphasis have been placed so much on the so-called Anglo-German Treaty of July 1890. This treaty apparently had nothing to do with the boundary setting in Southern Africa. It was meant to give the former German protectorate of Southwest Africa a trade route to the Zambezi River, because fellow members might know Germany had two protectorates in the Southern Hemisphere. One being the East African, the German East African territory, which is now part of the Republic of Tanzania. It was called Tanganyika. And then the German protectorate of Southwest Africa, which is on the west coast of the Atlantic Ocean. So there is, this treaty had established a route. That route, the name of that route was called, although the British called it the Additional Street of Southwest Africa. Our people have been very peaceful throughout. So that treaty has now been interpreted to mean that these two protectorates were extended. They were never extended. Because in fact, in August 1886, when Lord Salisbury became Prime Minister for the second time, he declined to extend the former Botswana protectorate. And therefore, we are very surprised to hear that even the former German protectorate of Southwest Africa is now claiming the Caprivi Strait, which was actually under English tutelage because of the sphere of influence. There is not a single law that has been passed in the British Parliament to extend either the former Botswana protectorate or the former German protectorate of Southwest Africa, following the defeat of Imperial Germany in the First World War. Regrettably, the states of Botswana and Namibia have crafted a common boundary on the Chobe River, which is in the middle of the Zambezia, known as the Anglo-German Treaty, the Heligoland Transfer Treaty. The only land swap that happened between Germany and England was that island which is sitting in the North Sea island of Scotland. It is called the Heligoland Zanzibar. There was an exchange between the Heligoland and the Zanzibar, which the Queen of England wanted. And there was no land swap in Southern Africa. Zambezia, but yet this treaty had nothing to do with fellow members of Unpo. It's pretty obvious for us to have sought membership to this important international organization. We regard it as an honor and great privilege to be a member of Unpo for the following reasons. The identity of our country remains obscure as a result of neighboring states that have encroached on Zambezian borderland. Our culture and tradition, as well as our dialects, are slowly being wiped off from the face of the earth. The protection of our fundamental human rights is of great importance to us. We feel that with the current political dispensation that exists now in Southern Africa, we lack the opportunity to participate on the national and the international stage. Furthermore, we feel that we are denied equal representation on the web, and for this, we want to thank Unpo to have come up with such a vision so that people like us can have a voice on the international market, on the international stage. We need to be a member of an international organization that will empower our voices, for we are marginalized and unrepresented. As we speak now, some of our people are languishing in jail, in Namibian jails, for offenses related to treason. How can we be charged for offenses related to treason when we have our own territory? The word treason is foreign to us. We know it having been used in the American Civil War in 1860. But our people right now, if we are talking, they are imprisoned for treasonable offenses. We know that what we are encouraged by what is written in the Bible. We are inspired, as in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 15, which reads, whatever is has already been, and what will be has been before, and God will call the past to account. Zambezia has been there before, and it should be here today. If not, God will call the past to account. What is important to know is that it's not a question of the size of the state, it is a question of the people living in that area, whether they want to be part of that system or not. And therefore, unfortunately, I didn't prepare a long speech. I thought it's only 3 minutes. So, Comrade Secretary General, thank you very much to Unpo. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to all them that have listened to me. It's a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you for those really kind words about the UNPO and how you and your people fit within our organization. We are truly proud to have you as members. Now I'm going to hand over for our final new member, which is the movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra. We have 2 or 3 people registered as Ikena. So I'm not sure who I'm going to open and find. Hopefully, I find Ralph on the other end of it. So I'm just going to.
Ralph is to talk, please. Ralph.
Yes.
Ralph Unwazurike is to talk. Ralph Unwazurike.
Yes. Who's speaking? Ralph?
Unwazurike, please. He's line. Chief Ralph Unwazurike. Okay, thank you.
I'm here already.
Hi, I got you here. Ralph, hey, I thought it was you. Okay, so we have Ralph. I'm going to try and mute the other Ikenna so we don't back. So, no, that's you, Ralph. And I'm going to. Okay, I got you. Okay, this is Chief Ralph Unwazurike from the Movement for the Actualization of the Sovereign States of Biafra. One thing I want to just do as a bit of introduction is talk a little bit about how very important the chief is towards the non-violent movement in Biafra. Biafra has different movements that are running, and the chief has been the leading light on the quest for non-violent change for the situation of the Biafran people for his entire life. We are truly honored to have him as a member. Membership in the UNPO, the decisions around Biafra, there were many different groups, I will just be openly say it, who were applying for membership. But to us, there was no doubt who was the right group for membership in the UNPO. And that is the group that is led by Chief Unwazurike, who, as I say, is truly a leader for non-violent change in Biafra. Chief, I'm going to hand it over to you. We are really delighted to have you, and thank you for joining the UNPO.
Thank you. Good afternoon. The President, Secretary General, Member States of the UNPO, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ralph Unwazurike. I hold a degree in political science of the Punjab University, Chandigarh. I also hold a law degree of the Bombay University, India. I was called to the Nigerian bar in the year 1991. Incidentally, the year UNPO was registered. Okay? So, being Maso, by definition, being means Biafra independence movement, and Maso is a movement for the actualization of the sovereignty of Biafra, then part of Nigeria. And eastern part of Nigeria was part of the area amalgamated Lord Lugard in 1914. And that amalgamation did not in any way receive the consent of the people of Biafra and other parts of Nigeria. The tendency was that bad bedfellows were yanked together in Nigeria as one country. That was a very devastating thing that happened to Nigeria. Because of the unwavering nature of Nigeria, the eastern part of Nigeria was predominantly Christians, while the rest of Nigeria was predominantly Muslims. The tendency was that the eastern part of Nigeria became an endangered species in Nigeria. The northern oligarchies, led by the Hausa Fulani, singular attitude of wanting to conquer
the rest of Nigeria. They want to Islamize the entire Nigeria and to take over the land of Christians who are predominantly the people of Eastern Nigeria. This they do by force and by killing of our people in all the northern states of Nigeria, including even the southwest. The tendency is that the lives and property of our people are not secured in Nigeria. In 1966, there was a thunderer of attack on the people of Eastern Nigeria. All our citizens in the northern states of Nigeria and even in the western region were slaughtered. Most of our citizens living in their areas were slaughtered, killed. The tendency was that the then military head of state, military governor of Eastern region, Jim Odumegwu, may his soul rest in perfect peace.